Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lital Shemesh, and coming up in today's newscast. IDF soldier Staff Sgt. Ido Baruch was killed yesterday in a terrorist shooting attack in Judea and Sameria. The U.S. calls Israeli Lebanese maritime agreement historic, while Israeli opposition calls the deal a sellout. And finally, an historic Champions League win for Maccabi Haifa over the Italian Juventus. Wave of Palestinian terrorist attack continue in Judea and Sameria during the Sukkot holidays. The latest victim was 21-year-old Staff Sgt. Ido Baruch, who was killed in a drive-by shooting on Tuesday. More in this report from ILTV's Steve Leibovich.
The so-called Lion's Den terrorist group claimed credit for the latest terror attack. It was a drive-by shooting near the Jewish community of Shavei Shomron in the northern West Bank. Staff Sergeant Ido Baruch from the Givati Brigade was struck with gunshot wounds to the upper body, and he died en route to Meir Hospital in Kfar Saba. Staff Sergeant Baruch was from the town of Gadera. He was part of a reconnaissance unit securing a march by Israeli settlers protesting recent terrorist shootings. According to the Army, a gunman suddenly opened fire from a passing vehicle and fled the scene at high speed toward a nearby Palestinian town. Israeli leaders offered words of condolence to the fallen soldier's family. Prime Minister Yair Lapid said a holiday was turned into a sad and painful day. Describing the shooting as a despicable terrorist act, Lapid vowed not to rest until the killers are caught. The death of Staff Sergeant Baruch comes only days after the fatal shooting of female soldier, Staff Sergeant Noah Lazar, killed at an East Jerusalem checkpoint. Both shooters are still at large and the subject of a wide-scale search. Security forces remain on high alert during the holiday period. Defense Minister Benny Gantz warned that anyone who wants to carry out attacks is in Israel's crosshairs.
Turning to the emerging maritime agreement between Israel and Lebanon, U.S. President Joe Biden called Prime Minister Yair Lapid and described the U.S.-mediated agreement as historic after a decade of failed attempts. Meanwhile, the opposition in Israel has fierce objections. Kayla Eberlin with a report.
U.S. President Joe Biden congratulating Prime Minister Yair Lapid for making history by reaching a maritime border agreement with Lebanon after a decade of failed attempts. Biden emphasized his commitment to Israel's security and regional stability and listed the Lebanon agreement as the latest example that the U.S.-Israel relationship is unbreakable. A deal between Israel and Lebanon would end a long-running dispute over some 860 square kilometers of the Mediterranean Sea covering the Karish and Kana gas fields. While details of the agreement have not yet been formally publicized, Israeli officials saying the agreement grants Jerusalem international recognition of its buoy-marked boundary 5 kilometers off the coast of the northern town of Rosh Hanikra, a marker which was placed in 2000. After that, Israel's border will follow the southern edge of the disputed area known as Line 23. Lebanon will enjoy the economic benefits of the area north of Line 23, including the Kana gas fields. Senior Israeli officials briefing reporters on the deal said that Jerusalem will receive compensation for giving up the rights to Kana, a portion of which will lie in what the agreement recognizes as Israeli waters. Then, shortly after Israel announced what was termed a historic maritime border agreement with Lebanon, Defense Minister Benny Gantz tried to preempt a torrent of opposition criticism, pushing back on the idea that Israel had rushed to conclude the deal because of threats from Lebanese terror group Hezbollah.
ההסכם שאליו אנו מתקדמים הוא הגון וטוב לשני הצדדים. עמדנו בנחישות על כך שההסכם יבטיח את האינטרסים הביטחוניים של מדינת ישראל. לא ויתרנו ולא נוותר על מילימטר אחד של ביטחון. ההסכם מתקדם למרות איומי ארגון הטרור חיזבאללה שניסה לחבל בתהליך ולא בגללו. נמשיך לעמוד על הצרכים הביטחוניים בכל תרחיש ולספק ביטחון לאזרחי ישראל.
Opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu strongly criticized Prime Minister Yair Lapid and claimed that his signing of the maritime border agreement with Lebanon constitutes a surrender to Hezbollah. However, unlike his statements from the past, which indicated that the agreement would be dropped if he was elected Prime Minister, Netanyahu said that things would be handled as if there were other bad agreements we inherited. And then there's the public, who also have mixed reactions to reports of a deal.
הסכם כזה אני מאוד מקווה שאולי בעתיד כן יקבע דווקא את הגבול הימי של מדינת ישראל ובהמשך יקבע את גבול היבשתי כפי שהוא כרגע בלי שינויים לרעתנו ורק יחזק את היציבות בגבול הצפון ואת הביטחון לתושבים.
Look, they were trying to negotiate the deal for like more than 10 years. As far as I know, they were speaking about dividing the area like 45% toward Israel and 65% toward Lebanon. And we have our amateur prime minister who doesn't know anything. That's what I think. All of a sudden, just to promote himself and to make friends with Biden and the world, he's given up. That's not a way to make friends and negotiate. The fact is they're getting 100% and we get nothing.
With us now is CEO and founder of the Israel Defense and Security Forum, Brigadier General Reserves, Amir Avni. Hello, Amir. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
So we know more today about the agreement. Is it good for Israel in your eyes?
Well, I think it's a very problematic agreement. IDSF launched today a petition calling to stop this process. I think that when Israel cedes sovereign land, economical assets to such an extent, this should be brought to a public discussion. It's not something that should be done in an interim government, and certainly not so fast without giving really the public an opportunity to understand what we are talking about. At the moment, the government is even trying to prevent a Knesset vote. I think that this is hardly legal or democratic. But really the question is, in the long term, what will be the consequences? How does Hezbollah or Iran perceive the fact that Israel was willing to basically give up 100% of what was discussed for so many years? And this is under the context of Hezbollah in the last few months since Lapid stepped into office, threatening to attack Israel.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Hezbollah, and we know that Nasrallah was threatening Israel, that he will attack. After we've seen the drones flying over, the sea border of Israel, 3 months later, we've reached an agreement.
Yes, and I think this is exactly how Hezbollah perceives it. They say we threatened. And Israel, after 10 years of insisting on having its share in these disputed maritime discussions, very fast, they gave up everything. Now, it's interesting, Lital, if you notice, that again and again, the government says, we made sure that 100% of the security issues were taken care of. But this issue really has nothing to do with security. This is pure economy. We're talking about a maritime discussion over potential gas and other things that might be underground. This is an economical issue, not a security issue at all. And
I think that also economy-wise, according to the details that were published today, it seems that the Kana gas field would be completely in the hands of Lebanon, according to what was published today.
Well, yes. I mean, there is a small part of Kana that is a bit southern to the line 23 that we agreed to. And so there is a certain small amount that we are supposed to get money for, but nobody knows how exactly it's going to work.
To watch full episodes of ILTV's Israel Daily and tons of other content from Israel, visit our website at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app.